Welcome back to another episode of the Bottom Line and yet another location. Each new week, new location.
Yeah, I thought we were getting somewhere consistent, but I guess not. I don't know if there really is ever
It's just gonna be a running gag. You
Yeah,
just
I
never
don't
know.
Yeah, you're gonna get. I feel like the viewers should be every week looking at what's behind us instead of what's actually or us, I should say. But yeah, another location. We're back to
our roots.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
back to the OG location, but of course it's been Willey and Dorazio, and Super Bowl week has come and gone, and the NFL season has officially come to a close.
yeah, it's kind of sad. I guess it always happens so quick, and you like. I feel like in the moment when that week one hits, you're like, oh man, football's gonna be here forever. And then at the end of week 18, you're like, oh man, it's coming to a close. But I still got playoffs. Playoffs will be fine. And then when playoffs are done, it's that one last game, and then man, you're sitting here and like now you're itching for football. You got 6 more months of it. So I mean, it's gonna be a long off season.
Yeah, a long off season, but we'll have off season content. We got more stuff to talk about, like basketball, other stuff. So end of football, but nowhere close near to the end of this show. But I mean, let's just get right into it. Let's talk about Super Bowl 58, where the Chiefs they just do it again. They do it again. They do it again.
I mean, that's all you can really say. I don't like you said. I coming into this game, I was skeptical, and finally you made the pick.
It was flipped. It was flipped what it's been all year. Me dying the Chiefs. You thought the Chiefs finally met their match, and quite frankly, I mean, throughout this game, it really could have gone either way. I mean,
that's an understatement.
This was such a good Super Bowl, one of the best Super Bowls of like the modern era for sure, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a good game. I mean, I think from the jump we saw the defenses really show out, keep both of these teams. I don't want to say in it because it was tied, but really, the defenses were the story, at least in that first half, and even the beginning of the second half, and then you started to see in the third and fourth quarter really. The battle between Mahomes and Purdy really start to heat up, and we're seeing these offenses start to get going. And for the second time in NFL history, we got free football. Another overtime, and not only did we get overtime, we almost got 2 overtimes because they took the whole period. So tons of extra football. I mean, about as even of a matchup as you could possibly get. I mean, this game literally went down to the wire.
Yeah, I mean, it went. That's a great way to put it. We talked about last week. We thought what was going to impact this game was which team could stop the run better. And to both these teams' credit, not really are these teams were able to run the football very well. McCaffrey had 80 yards on 22 carries. If you're the Chiefs, you'll take that. Then for the Chiefs, their leading rusher was Patrick Mahomes with 66 rushing yards. So we both thought, because both these teams really got to this game by their ability to run the football, set up the play action, etc. And in this game, both teams really shut down the run. And what really I noticed in that first half is both these teams, at least in the first half, was making lots of uncharacteristic mistakes. We see both teams
weird mistakes,
fumbling the football. You had the muff punt later on, which was a big factor in this game, and then we had the overtime decisions, which we'll talk about. But lots of just like unforced, I want to say, maybe somewhat forced, but just lots of uncharacteristic turnovers for these games. And sometimes we see this in the Super Bowl in these big moments. Sometimes you forget to do the simple things.
Yeah, and it's weird coming from these two teams because these are two of probably the best coached teams in the league, and not only that, but like I feel like these are two teams that you never see make mistakes like that. That's why they're here as opposed to other teams. I know that sounds cliche, but like it really is. Like these two teams for years have been some of the most mistake-free football teams, and like you said on the biggest stage, they were making mistakes left and right. I mean, fumbles, picks, and did anyone actually throw a pick?
Mahomes had one on that overthrow.
Yes. So, I mean, even when has Mahomes thrown a pick the whole playoffs?
And so they showed the graphic. This was like in the last 2 postseason. This was like his first ever interception.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Just uncharacteristic stuff. Just like, whoa, that's not supposed to happen. And as you talked about, I think the swing play of that game was the muff punt. I mean, I think that kind of flipped the tides a little bit.
Yeah, because the Chiefs, their offense was stalling over and over and over again. They had another 3-and-out. 49ers had a chance to go up 2 possessions. They're going to have good field position. And then before you know it, the Chiefs get the ball inside the 15-yard line. And we both said, because we were watching the game together, we're like, well, here comes a touchdown. What do you know? The very next play.
Yeah.
And that's what the great players do, though. I mean, it's what we were talking about throughout this game. We'll talk about later in the game where the 49ers had a couple chances. They had a chance at the end of regulation and then in overtime to at least get a touchdown and just put the pressure on. But they gave Patrick Mahomes so many chances.
Yeah.
And when you give one of the greatest players of all time that many chances in the clutch, he's going to bite you.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. You just can't give them the opportunity or take advantage of it. And I do want to give credit to Brock Purdy. I thought he was impressive this game. I think considering that they couldn't get the run game going and pretty much his top receiver was kind of banged up. Even Deebo Samuel didn't look himself.
I mean, we got to talk about Brandon Jennings as well.
Juwan Jennings?
Juwan Jennings. Yeah, excuse me. Juwan Jennings. Brandon Jennings, former basketball player. What am I doing? Juwan Jennings. What a game for the Wide.
Yeah.
Reception touchdown, passing touchdown. But like you said, Brock Purdy. I mean, great game. And I think a lot of people forget, this is his second year as a star.
A 7th round draft pick, Mr. Irrelevant, second year in the Super Bowl.
Everyone's so quick to say, oh, he's not the guy. He can't do it. We probably know he's not even in his prime yet. And he almost beat arguably the greatest quarterback of all time on the grandest stage.
Yeah, the best quarterback of this generation.
I'm not going to stand for the Purdy slander. The 49ers have their guy. I see people saying they need to go get somebody. That's just ridiculous.
No, I until he gives you a reason to say otherwise, you keep him, you keep moving on. I mean, he played well. You got to overtime with the best player in the NFL, playing at a high level, and you couldn't make one stop. I mean, I feel like you can blame the offense for only getting a field goal, but really all it was your defense to at least get you a few. All they had to do was hold the Chiefs to a field goal, and then it was sudden death overtime. And I feel like the Niners felt good about that. And we can talk about this. Is a good segue into the overtime rules. Now, I think it is a mistake what they did, but I see the reasoning. I think we talked about this.
I don't really hate the decision to get the ball first. The only problem was they got the ball first with the idea was they were going to score a touchdown and win the game. They weren't even aware of the new rules.
Yeah.
So they kind of got lucky with the new rules. If the first team scores a touchdown, then the second team has a chance to get a touchdown. Then it's the first team to ever score. If the other team that gets the ball first gets a touchdown, they win the game.
Right.
So I think getting the ball first is the right move. But when you have a whole week to prep, you have a bye week when the Pro Bowl is, take 20 minutes. We talk about this.
Yeah.
Take a 20, 30 minutes in a meeting and know what the overtime rules are, because none of the 49ers players and coaching staffs were not mostly aware what the new rules were. I saw a thing where they were looking at the Jumbotron with the rules, and that's where they were seeing where it was for the first time. And they all said it after the game. They didn't know. I mean, that's just unacceptable.
Yeah, and the biggest game of the year.
Especially with a coach who's been in an overtime Super Bowl before, you would think he would have a little PTSD and maybe double check what the rules are.
Yeah, one of the only two coaches.
Yeah.
I guess he wasn't the head coach in Atlanta.
No, he's the OC.
Yeah, but he was there. He saw it. I mean, he was one of the only people in the world that experienced that situation, and he wasn't prepared for it. I mean, I guess in his theory, he thought it wouldn't happen again, but it did. And like I said, I actually agree with the decision.
Yeah, I do too.
I know people are slandering the decision, but I think if he did know the rules, I would have still made the same call. Knowing the situation, I think I would have still made the same call, because especially with how red hot those offenses were at the end of the game.
Yeah.
If you can, put the hands in your defense to put pressure on the other offense, and then if they do score, hey, we got one drive. If we score here, it's over. And I think that.
I mean, I guess you could argue the Chiefs could go for two, which I think they said they were prepared to. But
yeah,
still,
so Andy Reid did say that. That's another caveat.
But I would still take my odds going first.
Yeah, I would too, because then if their plan is to do that, sure, we gotta make one stop, one play to win a Super Bowl. You're like, okay, that's fine. If you told a defense they got to stop someone from a 2-point conversion to win a Super Bowl, they're like, okay, they'd probably agree to those odds.
Yeah.
It just. That's another caveat to this whole thing is it is crazy, because the Chiefs did know the rules, and Andy Reid came out and said, hey, we were going to go for the win if that was the case, because I think both coaches are kind of on that same wavelength, as they're probably just going to score every time, which is why this rule was made.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look back to the iconic Bills Chiefs game that kind of changed the whole landscape of these rules. And I think they were perfect. In a game like this, you saw why those new rules were the way it were. I mean, it would have sucked to see this game end with the old rules.
I agree.
So I liked what the new rules have, but I want to talk about this now with Kyle Shanahan, because I think we both agree he's one of the best offensive minds, but he's starting to get a little bit of pattern in terms of big game performances. I don't know if it's all necessarily warranted, but I mean, what are your thoughts on Kyle Shanahan? Because you look at his track record in big games, 2 Super Bowl losses to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
As the OC, offense completely falls apart in the second half. So did the defense in that Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, man, he's got to be going through it. Yeah,
I mean, I saw a press conference that him and John Lynch did after the loss, and they asked him about it, and they were like, "Hey, what's your thoughts on this?" And his answer was pretty honest. He was like, "It's not that we can't win big games, because they've done it. I mean, they if you don't consider the NFC Championship and stuff like that big games, that you're lying to yourself. Those are big games. I just think we end up seeing narratives based on a few scenarios, and all we think of is those iconic scenarios.
So as an Eagles fan, I mean, back in the 2000s, Andy Reid at one point lost 3 straight NFC championships and lost Super Bowl in 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
No one ever talks about that now. I mean, sometimes it's just as a coach, I mean, you control a lot, but not everything's in your control. Are you gonna look at Andy Reid now and say he can't win a big game? Of course not.
Yeah, I mean, exactly like that. I think it's too early. He's a young head coach still. I know he's been a head coach for a while now, but in the grand scheme of things, he's still pretty young for the most part. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, props to this team for making 2 Super Bowls in back to back, or not back to back years, but the Niners,
with the same core of players for the most part.
Niners core has been dominant for probably 5 years now, and they've made 2 Super Bowls out of it. They've they haven't won any Super Bowls, but this has been one of the best teams in the NFL.
I mean, I already told you, Bruce, betting odds, the Niners are already the favorites for next year.
Exactly.
I think we'd both agree still, from top to bottom, they're probably still one of the top 3 teams in football.
Easily.
Right?
Yeah. Their roster is so good, and they're well coached, and it's just you run into Patrick Mahomes, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, this guy, and that's what I think that's the whole true morale of this story. And I know people get mad at people talking about Mahomes all this much and all that, but like, it's unbelievable what this guy's doing. I mean, I feel like, I don't need to tell the viewers because they know, but it just really shows how dominant this guy is. It just really does, because games like these, you're like, man, there's no way they should have won this game, but they did.
He just finds a way.
Yeah,
he just finds a way. He's just a pure winner. He's just a pure winner. A lot of people say, we told us last week how maybe he's a bit whiny, but I mean, he doesn't care. He just wants to win at whatever cost it takes.
Yeah,
and I respect that. I mean, he just finds a way. He's such a good leader, motivator, and I mean, he's on his pace right now. He's going to be way past Brady with his current pace. I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
yeah. I mean, assuming he keeps
he's already a first ballot Hall of Famer if he retired today.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's absurd. It's 6 years as starter.
If you compare his career to like a guy like Elway or Aikman, he's probably comparable in pure accolades. I mean, it's just an unreal pace that he's on right now. I mean, just truly something we haven't seen.
Yeah, man, it must be nice to be a KC fan. Must
be nice.
My uncle Mark is a KC fan. I am on the show last year before you were in the picture. We had a little show with him, and he was having a ball, bro. He was having a ball.
Hey, I mean, I bet he was. He was winning a Super Bowl.
Well, let's talk about the aftermath, because I was a little bit surprised. So following this game, the 49ers made lots of changes to their coaching staff, including the firing of their defensive coordinator. Ben, what did you think about this?
I didn't agree with it.
I agree.
I think the defense was not the reason you lost this game. You could say what you will about all these
22 points to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you'll live with that. Plus, that includes a whole extra period of football.
Right, and that includes all these turnovers. I think the defense gave you a chance. They gave you the blueprint. I know the Chiefs are probably saying the same thing, and it might be a similar conversation if they lose this game. But really, like we talked about, like the defenses were keeping them in this game, and Steve Wilkes was calling a great game from the defense, even despite losing his best linebacker or second best linebacker to a complete unlucky injury. I mean, the definition of unlucky. But he was calling a good game, and they were turning the ball over. They were holding them. They stopped the run completely and put the game in Patrick Mahomes' hands. And I know that sounds crazy.
And Travis Kelce was a complete non-factor in the first half.
Yeah, I mean he really came alive in the second half. Yeah. But they had a plan. It was working. I don't think it's his fault that they lose this game. If you watch back the tape, you're gonna be like, I mean, it was Patrick Mahomes probably made a few plays. But
I think it's one of those things where you lose a Super Bowl and you got to have the scapegoat. And this is what they chose to go with. But I mean, he will be scooped up in a heartbeat. There's no way this guy's not on a staff this year, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no way. I think the DC is probably out of the picture unless there's like a late hire or something. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think all the DCs have been filled in the league unless some team's like not sure this guy's that good. But I mean, at least has like an assistant role. Maybe he takes a year off to wait for an opportunity to come open, and then
that's true. It's so late, but at least next year, there's no way. Yeah, no way.
Steve Wilkes is one of the most respected guys in football. I mean, I remember when before he took this job, he was getting head coaching interviews. I mean, he's a respected coach in this league. I can't imagine he'll stay unemployed for long.
Yeah, and the other thing I just thought is we didn't have this in the script. The Cowboys, they found their new guy in Mike Zimmer, who I'm not gonna lie, Ben, I totally forgot about that dude. I totally forgot. I like the hire, bro. Mike Zimmer, you
remember the Vikings days?
No, I remember him as a Viking, but then
and like opened a memory.
Yeah. I thought it was a good hire. I mean, he's a good defensive mind. I'm kind of surprised no one else has really looked at me. His name kind of just went silent ever since he got fired. The Cowboys pick him up. I think that's a good replacement. I mean, obviously,
I do too.
You'd imagine they're going to keep that same formula where he's pretty much going to control the entire defense. I don't think McCarthy's going to start making defensive play calls anytime soon. Probably not. He's probably got the keys to that defense. And all those Viking years, they had a good defense. So
Yeah.
good replacement to Dan Quinn. I don't really think that
Hey,
defense.
put some respect on Dan Quinn. I know this isn't in
Yeah.
the script either, but what a staff he's building in
Yeah.
Washington, and what a direction this Washington team's headed in.
We
I
can
don't
talk
want
about for like a minute. I mean, they added Kingsbury as the OC, and now that's starting to boil some rumors with perhaps Caleb Williams, and then
yeah.
even in position coach, he hired Brian Johnson. And even as an Eagles fan, as an OC, was a big fan of Brian Johnson. But if you can ever get a former offensive defensive coordinator as a position coach
Sure.
or like a pass game coordinator or something like that, I think that's his official hire.
Yeah.
You'll take that all day long.
Yeah, I mean, I know Eagles fans are
Yeah.
going to make jokes about the screen game and all that,
Yeah.
but like he's probably not going to be the one calling plays like that. He's just going to be the one to kind of guide how a passing game works.
And this was a guy that was good enough to at least lead the Eagles to an above average year offensively for the most part.
Right.
So,
I can't imagine that's a bad hire.
No.
And in props to this team, they're just handling it correctly. And I know Dan Quinn was like probably the last hire of the league that was kind of like well, we got nothing else. I guess we'll get Dan Quinn. But he's really shown he's got something to prove.
Yeah, he's got something to prove indeed. So that's going to be it for our football talk for this week. But do not fear, in the coming weeks, my man.
Well,
Ben,
we got a little bit later in the show.
Oh yes, a little bit later in the show. But in the coming weeks, my guy Ben is a huge NFL draft and free agency junkie.
Yeah,
I mean, so we'll have. I mean, you make mocks and you do.
Yeah, if I have time. I mean, school is
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
taking over that.
Right.
But when I was in high school and I didn't have much to worry about, I used to make mock drafts and
Watching tape.
Yeah, well, watch a little bit of tape. I'll probably do a little bit of work, but I do. I think every football fan doesn't put enough stock into the offseason because like that's really where these teams are made. I mean, you could say what you will about the games and obviously that, but like you can really get a census of what a team looks like just off the offseason.
Yeah. So let's talk about the NBA a little bit. The trade deadline is coming past, and compared to past trade deadlines, a bit of a quieter one. Yeah, but a bit more of a quiet one. I think Buddy Hield to the Sixers like one of the bigger moves. That just kind of shows you.
Yeah,
like,
no disrespect,
no,
but that's not a blockbuster.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, that just goes to show you. I mean, there are lots of rumors flying around that there's every offseason, and they all just kind of blossom. I think the biggest rumor of them all was lots of teams were inquiring about LeBron James, notably the Warriors. I think the Sixers had an inquiry, a couple other teams, but LeBron staying in LA, Lakers and him did not want to ship him. But honestly, given where the Lakers are at, it'd be a crazy move. But it's not a terrible idea the more I think about it, because I feel like the Lakers just kind of hanging on to that 2020 core. It just seems like year after year, they've just been slightly above average, but not enough to contend with the big dogs.
I mean, you forget last year. People forget last year they were in the Western Conference Championship.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I know we like to say things about LeBron or whatever. I think the biggest thing of this whole LeBron era has been if is Anthony Davis healthy?
Yep.
And that's going to be the key. Is that I think LeBron's been great. I mean, considering his age.
I mean, it's unbelievable. We haven't really talked about LeBron James,
right.
In terms of longevity. I mean, we'll probably never see anything like this again.
No, we won't. Unless there's some freak athlete. You know what? We probably will, because that's how it always goes. Is you always have that, like, Tom Brady. We'll never see it again. And then, Patrick Mahomes happened. I said the same thing. We'll never see another Joe Montana, Tom Brady happen. Same thing here. We'll see another one. I mean, it's probably going to happen, but it really is unheard of the longevity we've seen with this guy. Because, I mean, it's, what are we in year 2022 now? 21?
Yeah, I think it's year 22.
Still putting up all-star level numbers. I mean, he's still one of the best players in the league. And, like I said.
Still the biggest draw by far.
Right. Still box office. Yeah. I mean, everyone wants to see LeBron James play basketball. It's just, I don't know if the Lakers is the team fit for him right now, but like I said, I don't know if he's been the problem. And I think they've built teams correctly, assuming they're all healthy. And injuries have kind of plagued this team, whether it's been AD or whether it's been him, because he's had some injury, especially the past couple of years. He's been kind of injury riddled, off and on. So I think if they're healthy, they're still one of the, the top dogs if they can get into that mindset.
I mean, no one wants to play LeBron in the playoffs.
No one wants to play him, period. I mean, if they're healthy, they're still like, oh no, the Lakers, like, you're still scared of them when you see them on their schedule. And can they beat the top dogs? We don't know, but I'm not going to count them out. I think it's crazy, but I am intrigued by this whole Warriors story. When I saw that broke, I was reading about it, and it was like, it was a pretty in-depth inquiry.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like they just called and were like, hey, is LeBron available? Like, I think they had a meeting with Pelinka and those.
Rich Paul, LeBron's agent. Like, they all got into like a room and they ultimately decide we're not a fan of this, but it was not like a 1 minute
No, they didn't shut it down immediately. I mean, this was a real conversation being had. And I mean, imagine the sports world would have broke, I mean, in half. I mean, that would have been
LeBron and Curry,
shattering. Yeah.
Oh, man. If that's like when you're on NBA 2K and you're just like creating your own roster and you just want like all the
I want LeBron. Put him on the Warriors.
I mean, it was just what it felt like video game stuff. And the other thing with LeBron that I want to talk about is his son, Bronny James, at USC. Another report came out the Lakers are seriously considering drafting him in the first round to appease LeBron because LeBron pretty much already said, look, wherever he goes, I'm going. I want to play with him. And that's an incredible story. I hope that that can play out.
Yeah.
But I mean, no disrespect to Bronny, but like based on what we've seen, he's not first round talent right now. But he has that name value, and he's probably going to be a top 15 pick.
I mean, hey, I think it's one of those things where you're taking a 2-for-1 package.
Yeah.
You're like, we want Bronny because we know that if Bronny's coming,
even if it's LeBron for a year, like that can turn a franchise around. Like imagine like a team like the Pistons or like the Hornets, a team that just has like no marketability right now.
Yeah.
Like that even
LeBron James on a 1-year rental.
Even for one more year, like that would drive box sales, ticket sales. I mean, that can
changes your franchise.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Wizards land Jordan for those few years, even when he was 40. I mean, they were packing out arenas.
Yeah.
So it's something to keep an eye on. I'm curious if he'll declare for the draft. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider with that, but we will move forward. And yes, you lied. We do have a bit more NFL talk.
You lied.
I lied. Yes, I lied. I forgot we had this in there. So the NFL draft coming up, we don't really have the Bears are just still being like awfully quiet. They have the number 1 overall pick. They also have the pick at 10. And a report came out saying it's going to take a historic package on the trail, that number 1 spot. And we were talking before the show that could be true, but could also just be them trying to bait some other teams a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is such great work by the Bears. I don't wish more teams would like kind of play this hardball. Yeah. We saw it last year. The Bears were in the exact same position, and what did they get out of that number 1 pick?
Oh man,
a multitude of stuff. I mean, multiple picks.
DJ Moore,
one of which being the number 1 pick that ended up being this year. I mean, they completely finessed, and a superstar Pro Bowl level player in DJ Moore. And they're doing the same thing. They're saying, hey, we got the number 1 pick again. If you want it, come get it. And there's about a multitude of teams. I mean, if you look at the order, the Commanders, the Patriots, even the Giants, maybe even a team like, the Jets, depending, all these Falcons is a great team. All these teams might be in the market for a quarterback.
Well, I saw a report came out for whatever reason. The Steelers are listed as the favorite for Justin Fields right now.
I saw that. And that's, who knows what's going to happen here. I mean, but my point is that they know how good this class is for quarterbacks and whether or not they decide to stick with the quarterback.
I mean, we're in a world where it's pretty much a guarantee. Like 3 out of the first 4 picks are probably going to be quarterbacks.
Oh, probably. I mean, it's crazy. It's going to be Caleb Williams, Drake May, and probably Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
It's probably going to be those 3 guys are probably going to go in the top.
And then there's so much talent even later in the draft for quarterback too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, don't even get me started. I'm a big fan of this quarterback class. I think it's loaded. I know we talk about this year's quarterback class. It's been really good. I mean, all things considered, I think this has been one of the better ones with CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. I mean, I'm not giving up on Bryce Young.
No, I'm not either.
But this quarterback class is loaded, and there's tons of teams that are in the market for it. But I think it's so cool what this Bears team is doing, and they're really just they're forcing other people's hands, and they know they have the leverage because they have 2 top 10 picks, and they have all the cap space in the world, and they have a young roster. They can do whatever the heck they want, and it's pretty much just, hey, if you want to make our lives easier and give us more cap or give us more picks, players, go for it. Because I really don't think they need to draft a quarterback, and maybe that's what their plan is. It's I
think we're both in agreement. I personally think they should not draft a quarterback. I think it makes a lot of sense to trade maybe down.
It's one of those situations where they're waiting to see what other teams do, and if a team doesn't bite, they're going to draft Caleb Williams.
It wouldn't shock me even on draft day if they don't have their mind made up yet. This might be a situation where they're waiting by the hour, waiting for teams last minute give them their best offer.
Because it really is a situation.
I'd be shocked if before the draft, there's a report coming out that says clear cut what they're doing. I think this is going to be
I agree.
A day of where it's going to be playing phone tag across the league. It's going to be fun. It's going to be madness.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, there's really a scenario where they play this down to the last minute, and on draft night they decide we're going to draft Caleb Williams.
It wouldn't even shock me. It wouldn't even shock me if at the day after the draft, Justin Fields and Caleb Williams are both on the roster. That wouldn't shock me either. They might not even have a trade partner for Fields until after the draft.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say that maybe that happens too, where they draft someone and then trade Justin Fields. But like you said, that might take a while. I mean, maybe it's going to take a preseason thing where some quarterback underperforms or gets hurt, and they're like, "Oh no, we need a guy. Let's go get Justin."
There's so many different options. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and maybe free agency tells us more that we need to know based on maybe some of these teams bite on a veteran guy.
Well, yeah, you have like Tannehill, Kirk Cousins out there.
Maybe a team like Atlanta bites on a veteran guy. Who knows? But I mean, that's why I love the offseason.
Yeah.
This is really the nitty gritty of it. But even if you go below that, I mean, I'm so intrigued to see what teams like Washington do. Or I think one of the biggest weird mysteries is like New England, because when is the last time we see New England have a high end pick like this if it wasn't a trade up?
Well, plus this is the first draft pick that's out of the Belichick era, so we have some.
So who knows?
I mean, still a similar mind to Belichick, but I mean, Mayo's his own guy. So
yeah.
I mean, we'll see what the new culture for New England's gonna be like. It's so fun.
I tell you,
and the season's over, but I mean, it's still a fun time.
It's starting already.
It's starting. You're right. And the other thing with the NFL is we had the award show. So Lamar, he won his second MVP
as expected.
CJ Stroud. I mean, there were really a lot of shocks here.
The only shock of the night was Myles Garrett. I was really shocked by that one. That's the second time in his career that TJ Watt has lost an award despite being the best statistical player on the football field. And I don't.
Yeah, I thought TJ Watt should have won the award. I mean, obviously Garrett's still a great defensive player, but I'm not really sure if he had a.
I think we're losing. This is the second time it's happened to TJ Watt, where we're basing our defensive player of the year award off hypotheticals and like, oh, this guy's getting triple team, his impact. And I don't hate that logic, but I don't know. To an extent,
Watt's still getting double triple team too.
Right.
So I mean,
yeah, I'm just saying.
I hear what you're saying.
The mindset that they're having. My flashlight just came on. That's the mindset they're having. Is a guy like Myles Garrett is just impact his his presence. But yeah, I feel bad for TJ Watt because
I feel bad for Puka Nacua too, because obviously CJ Stroud was by far the right choice.
But what a year!
I mean, man broke a record and it still wasn't good enough.
Yeah,
it still wasn't good enough. But I mean, it was good. I'm not really shocked. I mean, happy for Lamar, but again, can he do it in the playoffs? That's going to be yet again the story for him.
I mean, it's always funny watching This is the second time we've seen Lamar at an award show for this MVP, and he's instead of getting ready for the Super Bowl, he's getting ready for the offseason. So
I mean, it's tough.
It is tough.
And I get it with the offseason. What the heck's what the Ravens and the Bills going to do? Because they have lots of unanswered questions with how they're going to build their rosters. Like, are they going to blow it up? Like, I don't think.
I'm telling you, eventually, we talked about this idea. We'll probably at some point do an offseason special for each division and really break down team by team of like what their plan is. Because I mean, there's so many stories. Even the teams that are the most simplistic things, like the Chiefs or the Niners, like there's so much to talk about, even in their organizations, and they're about as complete as it gets. Yeah,
it's a very, very good point. Then this just came out. It's finally happening. It's finally confirmed.
11 years
for summer. I'm not sure if any of the viewers are gamers out there, but I mean, this is a long time coming. NCAA Football 25 coming to a console near you. I mean, I'm pumped.
Yeah, 11 years in the making. I saw the trailer. One of the coolest things they did was they had like one of the chain markers, and it said 14 on it, and they flipped the to move it to first down, and it said 25. It just shows how long this thing's been out of it. I mean, even if you're not a gamer, everyone knows that the college football deserves a video game. I mean, I just think it's like,
I remember from the last game, they didn't have the naming rights, so that's where just go the freshman. Like when they said the names at quarterback, it's classic.
But it's been a long time coming. I mean, this whole, people don't realize what the NCAA football games did for the modern college football age of NIL and all that stuff. I mean, NCAA football was kind of the first one to really put the pressure on that. I mean, we saw, back when the game ended, that was the reason it stopped. That was the reason the NCAA basketball games were ended.
But now we live in this world of NIL where players are making money, and that just opens the door to things like this.
Yeah, and I'm so excited. I mean, I think this is obviously everyone should be excited about this. It's good for college football. I think it's good for the gaming community. It's just a fun, like, who doesn't love college football?
Dude, I'll tell you what, I'm a Michigan fan, but dude, that playing as Colorado is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, dude. I think that's going to be one of those dynasty teams where everyone wants to be Deion Sanders and build the Colorado Buffaloes. But it's just going to be fun to be, back. It's a feel good story for all college fans.
Yeah, and another feel good story. I mean, we're in the midst of greatness. Women's sports don't get nearly as much attention as they should because what Caitlin Clark is doing,
unreal.
Set the all-time record for women's points
and assists
in the same game against Michigan. She had assists.
Yeah, so
Okay.
assist came first, and then like a week later, she broke the scoring record.
And
But
in this game against Michigan, which was a sold out crowd at home,
yeah,
in the first quarter, she outscored the entire Michigan team. She had like 25 points in the first quarter.
yeah,
Michigan had like 22 or 23. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, she's obviously going to probably be the number one pick in the draft.
I hope so.
That she should. And honestly, when she gets drafted, she already might be one of the best players in the WNBA.
Yeah, I mean, we
She's
saw
so
this.
good.
We saw this years ago. I'm trying to think of the girl that was drafted number one a few years ago. That like, you see these rare prospects. We see it in the NBA too. So
Mhm.
it's it translates well. It's just you see these once in a lifetime prospects that we saw it this year with Wembanyama.
Yep.
You're already in your head like, man, the second they get drafted, they're already an all-star. And
Yep.
that's like what goes in your mind. You're like, they're already one of the best people in the league. And like, it's crazy that we see one of a kind prospects like this. But to see a player
and she's really just changed the entire landscape of women's college basketball. I mean, they're selling out crowds every day. People want to watch her play. I mean,
I love watching her play. I remember I had never been into college women's basketball, but I'll be honest, I was pulling up the Elite Eight game last year when she played I forget who it was, but she was doing the ring thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is electric.
I think it was LSU, I want to say.
Yeah. This is electric for college basketball, for women's basketball in general. She's a one-of-a-kind prospect. I love the swag she plays with, the kind of energy, and she's just a heck of a player.
She is heck of a player. So I mean, I'm excited, and that's another thing with March Madness coming up. I mean, it's gonna be fun. This is probably gonna be the most tuned in women's March Madness probably of all time. Because there's so many stories. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, she's another big one. I mean,
even UConn with Paige Buchers and then the UConn girls, the South Carolina dominance.
I mean, credit women's basketball. I mean, look what they're doing as a whole. You got Sabrina going against Curry. You got Clay. Like women's basketball is back on the map.
Hey, they're putting them on the map. Props to women. Hey, the WNBA had a pretty big year this year, I think, too. So props to women's basketball.
They deserve respect. I mean, hey, women can ball too. Women can certainly ball too.
I know if there's one thing, I'm gonna roast you live on the air. Caitlin Clark would cross you up any day.
I mean, she would cross you up. That's fine. She would cross us both up simultaneously.
Yeah, we could play sides, the little double team defense, and we are both ending up on the floor with our ankles broken.
We'll stay on the booth. We'll say
we'll stay on the camera.
But that's going to do it for this episode of The Bottom Line. We'll be back next week with more sports talk, so stay tuned to that. Stay tuned to the social medias. We'll have more clips uploaded there. But for now, he's Ben Willey. I'm Dorazio. We'll catch you next week.